All right, y'all, welcome back. So we're gonna be doing some catfishing today out here on the Kentucky River. We're gonna be fishing out of our little John boat. It's a foggy December morning, hardly any wind blowing. We got a light drizzle. Seems like it should be some good conditions to be out on the river today. So we're gonna get the boat in the water, see how it goes. All right, so I think we found the first spot we're gonna fish here today. And since we're getting into December now, we're gonna be doing a lot more anchor fishing now, a whole lot less drift fishing. We don't have a whole lot of current today, but I think we got enough where we can probably anchor up. We might have to double anchor. But yeah, we got our first spot picked out here. We got a big deep hole, about 40 foot deep. It's full of fish. Now, not many of them look to be catfish, but we did see a couple down there that I'm fairly certain are catfish. All right, so we're getting ready to drop down our front anchor, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know about the breakaway anchors, but I'm sure there's some that don't. So if you're not using these breakaway anchors, I can't recommend them enough. Basically, you got a chain that attaches down here to the bottom, and then you zip tie the chain up here on top. So if you get hung up, instead of having to cut your anchor rope and losing your anchor, you can just pull on the rope real hard, or maybe have to tie it to the boat, and you pop these zip ties, and the chain flips around to the back, and you can just pull it out from the back. I've been using these for years, and I've only ever lost one. I got it hung up in a cable or something, but normally you can get these back. And I also think these are a lot safer, because there was one time when I got the anchor rope hung up on the back of the boat, and in real heavy current, it spun the back of the boat around, and right before the boat went underwater, the zip tie broke, the anchor broke loose, and I think that's pretty much the only thing that kept the boat from sinking that day. So can't recommend these enough if you're not using them. This anchor here is from a company called Never Lost. Monster makes a good one. There's a ton of different companies that make them and sell them, but you can even make your own. I've got one back here I made probably 8 years ago that I still use all the time. So if you can weld it all, you can build one of these. It's not hard. Now, something else that I recommend on your front anchor especially, if you're gonna be fishing rivers like this, you're gonna need a long front anchor rope, at least 100 foot. I would recommend probably closer to 200 foot. I can't remember if this rope's 150 or 200, but there's been times where I've used every inch of it. The more rope that you can let out on your front anchor when you're in heavy current, the better that anchor's gonna hold. If you've got a real steep angle going down to the anchor, and you're in some pretty heavy current, it's probably not gonna hold too good for you. But if you let a bunch of rope out, you can normally get to dig in. Now, I've got a remote control trolling motor here, but I'm having to turn it by hand because the steering motors went out on it. I gotta wait on a new one of those. Yeah, these XI3s and XI5s, you know, I've had a couple of the XI3s, and they're good trolling motors, but the steering motor always ends up getting moisture in it and ends up locking up. And normally you can oil the shaft and get them freed up again for a while, but this one right here, it's done for, so I'm having to turn it by hand. All right, so we've got out probably about 75, 80 foot of front anchor rope. That should be plenty for this light current. Now we're gonna drop our back anchor. This is the anchor I was telling y'all about that I made out of some old scrap metal. It's made just like the one on the front. The chain attaches down here to the bottom, then it's zip tied up here on top. Yeah, I've been using that anchor for at least 8 years, probably longer than that. And I've always ended up getting it back every time. Now I've just got some cheap Walmart rope for my back anchor. Not very long, but it doesn't need to be. I don't want my back anchor rope out any farther than I have to have it out when I'm catfishing like this, because I don't want a big fish to get hung up in it and end up losing him. So I put out just enough back anchor rope where it'll hold the boat straight, but not near as much as I'll let out on the front. So what I'll do now is I'm gonna pull in about 20 foot of the front anchor, tie it off, and then we'll get the back rope super tight. and tie it off, and the boat will be locked up straight. Even if we have some wind blow across the river, the boat will stay straight even in this light current. All right, so we got that one tied off. Now we'll come around here to the back. We're gonna pull this rope as tight as we can get it without breaking it loose from the bottom, and then we'll tie it off. All right, so we got the boat locked down now. Now, something else you can do if you don't want to throw a rear anchor, as long as it's not too windy, you can throw a drift sock out the back. Now, it would take a big drift sock today in this light current like this. But yeah, I don't have one big enough to help us out today in this light current, so we're just gonna use the back anchor. All right, so we're gonna cut some of this bait up, get some of these rods out. We're excited to see how it's gonna go today. I'd really like to have a little more current. That seems to really help things out when you're river fishing like this. It puts the fish in predictable places. But the river is on a rise. I can tell the current's picked up a little bit since we launched, and it's supposed to be double this by the time we leave here tonight. So hopefully they're right about that. But let's get some bait cut up here. Yeah, so we're not gonna throw any real big pieces of bait. We're just gonna throw some normal sized chunks out, see what kind of mood they're in. That's one thing in the winter time like this. I don't normally throw as big of baits as I do in the summer because, you know, the fish don't have to eat as much. You know, if they're not in a good mood, they're a lot more likely to eat a little piece of bait like that than they are half a skipjack. All right, so we're just using our medium action rods today since we don't have much current. We're gonna be throwing light weights, 2 to 4 ounces. And we got 30-pound monofilament on the reels down to a 3-way rig, and then a 60-pound leader going down to our circle hook. Now, one thing I like to do when I'm anchored up fishing multiple rods like this is I like to put my bait out at different lengths. So one will be out far, the one next to it short. Far, short, and, you know, all the way across like that. And the reason for that is, you know, if there's a fish 20 foot behind the boat, or say 50 foot behind the boat, and I cast out past him in this current like this, he's probably never going to smell it or taste it. So you always want to have baits, you know, close to the boat and farther away from the boat, because it's all about scent when you're anchor fishing in current like this. So having your bait staggered like that, you're covering more water for one thing, and you got a better chance of that fish smelling it or tasting it like that. Catfish have some of the best sense of taste and smell of any fish, so you got to keep that in mind anytime you're anchored up, or anytime you're catfishing really, but especially when you're anchored. All right, there we go. So we got 6 baits out. We'll give it 30 minutes or so, see how it goes. As far as how long to set in the spot when you're anchored up, it really just depends on how confident you are in the spot. Now, I'll mark fish down here. I don't know if they're gonna be active or not. We'll give it 30 to 45 minutes probably. If nothing happens there, we'll move on down to the next spot. We've already got a few spots picked out down through here we're gonna fish. So yeah, we'll bounce around a little bit. But you know, fish aren't moving around as much in the wintertime. That's one thing to keep in mind. You know, they're normally more stationary than they are in the summertime, the blues anyway. So if you don't catch them within 30 minutes or so, you know, it's probably time to move, but there is some exceptions to that, you know. What's going on here? It's definitely a bite, isn't it? You gonna go with it? No, he dropped it. Channel cat probably. But yeah, we'll give it 30 minutes or so. If nothing happens, we'll move on to the next spot. Get the net. Get the net. Hurry up. This will be our bait right here. Say it's a drum. That'd be bait. Right over on them rocks. Yeah. Got some bait. Oh! That thing got a hole in it? Yeah.
Yeah. Sure, rain it again. I guess.
Well, that net ain't no good, not for a fish that size.
I guess trying to flip back through.
I guess get that other net. I didn't know that. All right, so while we were sitting here anchored, I was bouncing a jig off the bottom here just beside the boat. Just trying to catch something else to have a different type of bait. And we caught us a drum. Now that's not one of my favorite kinds of bait, but I am gonna go ahead and cut it up and use some of it just to have something different. You know, I always like to have different options as far as bait goes. Now skipjack is one of my favorite baits. That's what I use most of the time. But there is days when they seem to prefer other baits. So we got options now. We'll cut it up and try it. All right, so we've been at it for a few hours here. This is actually the fourth spot that we've anchored up in, and we still haven't put a fish in the boat. So things are definitely pretty tough out here today. We fish creek mouths, river bends, deep water, shallow water. It's about 5 p.m. Sun's gonna be going down here in a minute. Yeah, we just got set up in this spot. We've marked some good fish down there. It's in a river bend here, about 35 foot deep. So we'll give it a few minutes, see what happens. We're not giving up yet. It ain't big, but he buried it, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
It don't take much on. It's not a bad. It's definitely gonna be a blue. It ain't no channel cat. It's gonna be a pretty decent fish, maybe. He's rolling around now. I tell you what, when you put in a hard day's work though, and don't get any bites or any real bites, and then you see one go down like that, boy, that's a good feeling. I was hoping there'd be one right here. I just grabbed it up. I didn't even offer it to you. Maybe there's another one here that'll bite. We didn't sit here long at all. Yeah, not a bad fish. Good to see a blue getting active a little bit here. Yeah, he's been down in the mud for sure. That's what I figured they were doing. Don't have much fight in him, really. Yeah, the water temperature is 43.6. I mean, it dropped so fast. And anytime that happens, anytime you have a real fast drop, that's gonna make fishing tough normally. All right, so there he is. Not a giant fish, but I'll tell you what, after the day we've had, or the last few trips we've had, really, I couldn't be happier with a fish like that right now. Hopefully we can catch another one before we get out of here, but you can see all the mud over here on his side. He's definitely been buried down in the mud. I just don't think the fish have been active at all lately, but yeah, right here in this river bend, there's a few down there. Maybe we'll get some more. So for those of you all that are new to catfishing or maybe just new to river fishing, you're having problems figuring out where to anchor up or just where to fish in general, best advice I could give you is find a map. It could be Google Earth, map on your sonar or anything like that. Look at the stretch of river that you're fishing, pick out the sharpest bends in that river, go there. Somewhere in that bend, more than likely, you're gonna find some fish. A bend's got about everything in it. You know, the outside bend's normally gonna be deep. The downriver side of the inside bend, when you got real heavy current, normally there'll be some current breaks and some wider current on the inside of the bend. That'll hold fish a lot of times in heavy current, but you can't ever go wrong fishing a river bend because they're always normally gonna have a drop in them. And in the wintertime anchor fishing like this, or you know, anytime you got good current, when I'm anchor fishing, I'm normally looking for some kind of drop off or current break. So there's some advice that might help some of you new guys out there struggling on finding places to fish. I know that's what I struggled with when I was first starting out river fishing. All right, so we didn't catch anything else in that last spot we were in. We've set up here in the last spot of the day. We're back down here closer to the ramp. There was one more spot down here I wanted to set up in before we left. We'll give it probably 20 minutes or so. We were able to just throw one anchor out the front here in this spot, which is really the way I like doing it. The current really hasn't picked up that much, but there's zero wind out here right now, so that one anchor is keeping the boat pretty straight. I hate messing with that back anchor, but if that's what you got to do to keep the boat straight, I think it's worth doing, because I hate when the boat's swaying back and forth. You're just going to stay hung up all day when that happens. But yeah, we're going to give this about 20 minutes, and if nothing happens, I guess we'll call it a day. All right, y'all, so we finally gave in and caught it a day. We was hoping to get that big fish that we came for, but it don't always happen, man. It was a tough day out there on the river. But even on them tough days, you always still learn something. Every time you go fishing, you may not even know what it was, but you always learn something. We found some new spots today. We were fishing a stretch of river that we haven't been on very many times, so we covered a lot of water, found some new spots, and hopefully it'll be better next time. But I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed. God bless. We'll see you next time.